guys, welcome to the show. My name is Jesse Hunt, and this is the Road Traveled Podcast. On this episode, I'm sitting down with my longtime friend and creative collaborator, Rony Mikhael. Rony is a multi-talented creative working as a creative director at a company called Valiant. He also co-owns a coffee company on the side and does an assortment of other design-related things in his free time. Rony has had a ton of life experience, being born in Egypt, then moving to Kuwait, San Fransisco, and now living in Hamilton, Ontario. We talk about career-defining moments, building authentic working relationships, overcoming anxiety, and being resourceful in today's job market, specifically within the creative field. I really enjoyed my conversation with Rony, and I think you will too. Welcome to the show. So did you go to school? Because I think just a minute ago you had mentioned that you went to school for photography. Did you have any like design schooling or anything like that? Or
Yeah. So I went to school first for photography right out of high school.
Right.
And did that for about a semester and a half. And after I was done shooting large and medium format cameras, which was awesome, probably the best part of the program, I dropped out because I went on tour with my band instead. And I sold my darkroom. I just let go of all that, and I went on tour with my band. And that was kind of a all around crystallizing time for me, because that's when I realized I could do stuff like design. I was designing our merch. I was doing all the promotional stuff, the flyers and posters. At the same time, I started a promotional company with my bassist at the time, and we were putting on shows. And I was doing all the promo stuff for that. And I kind of had my first hand in advertising with that stuff. And our first show ourselves, like we had no name, no songs out. Nobody knew who we were. Though we had 600 people come up to our first show.
Wow.
And we had to turn 200 away of them because it was in like a church basement.
That really speaks to your advertising abilities, I guess.
Don't know.
Jeez.
I don't think I'm good at advertising all the time, but sometimes it just kind of works. But it kind of put me in a direction where I was like, I can actually make something out of my ideas. And that was a thing that I wasn't 100% encouraged about when I was a kid. Like my parents weren't like, pursue your dreams and make something of your ideas.
Right.
But they never discouraged it either. And I think my background, so I'm Egyptian, which usually means that I'm a pharmacist or an engineer by trade, maybe an accountant. But that's not the case for me. And my parents actually let me go to college for photography, which is so unorthodox. When I dropped out and decided to go on tour with my band with my long hair at the time, that was very unorthodox for an Egyptian kid. And they let me do it. And they let me kind of explore different things. And I think it's because they just knew that, one, I was stubborn and they couldn't hold me back from doing it. And two, just because I could figure something out. And that's always been, I think, a trait that I've carried with me my whole life, is this resourcefulness. And if I can't make it through a situation, I will make it through a situation by hook or crook, just because I'll do it, just because I'm resourceful. And oddly enough, now that I say that, I realize like that's my dad speaking, kind of thing. Like he would always say, by hook or crook. He would always say, if there's a will, there's a way. Right. And those were two of his very common phrases in English. And I think that's kind of what kind of inspired that ability to just make something out of nothing and figure a way out.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Was there, because I would describe my family the same way, like they always kind of supported me with what I wanted to do. I was in a band also. Looking back now, like if I was my parents, I'd be like, you're a psycho, like that your music is not that good, so stop. But like they never really held me back from anything, especially going after these creative endeavors where my dad's background, I think my parents are both very creative in their own way, but my dad's background is very corporate. And I definitely see a lot of that in myself, but I also wanted to go down this more creative path, and they believed in me and supported, but that's not to say there wasn't some headbutting, obviously. Did you find that you had that? Like, I would say it was all, looking back now, at the time I probably hated it, but looking back now, very creative, or maybe creative is not the right word, but like constructive would be the right word.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, your dad being corporate is probably the reason why you're now thinking, hey, maybe I should make money out of what I'm doing.
Right? Yeah.
Right.
So I'm starting a podcast.
There's tons of money in podcasts.
Yeah. Looking for sponsors, by the way.
I think I got a lot of support, kind of an unspoken support from my parents to pursue creative things, in that they didn't stop me. And, you know, my parents are both creative, again, in their own rights. They both worked, like my dad worked a government job, back in Kuwait when I was raised in Kuwait. So he had a government job back there, and my mom was the manager at a publication company. So there's a bit of that kind of design background with publication design, and I got to go to her work and stuff. And so what they were doing really influenced me. Even my dad, even working an office job, like a government job, he was a calligrapher, Arabic calligraphy, which is like,
can't even imagine that. Yeah. Wow.
And so I'm not on that level, but that definitely got me into calligraphy, got me into lettering, which is just a passion of mine that I enjoy doing. But it was another thing that helped us engage together as a father and son, and for him to be able to influence me. And, you know, I would ask him how to draw a horse realistically. And like, that was always my thing that I always wanted to draw as a kid was horses. I really wanted to get good at horses, and he would always draw them amazingly. And I was like, I was so inspired. Like, how do you do that? You know, how do you just see a thing and draw a thing? Luckily I'm better at drawing now, but you know, that's one of the things I remember sitting back and thinking, you know, this guy is like just living his life, but like he's providing for his family, and he can do these things with his hands. Like, and I was, you know, more inspired to do both of those things, like, you know, provide for my family, but also do these things with my hands. And my mom had a huge influence too, because she was super corporate, and she was entrepreneurial. She had some investments on the side and some just like side hustles that she was doing, which like now I talk about, it's like, wow, mom was a boss.
Yeah. Do you think that you always knew that you wanted to go down this route? Was there ever a time where you're kind of questioning, like, well, what am I supposed to do? I know I'm into all of this stuff, but like, what can I do with it? Or, you know, did you ever have that? Should I just take a safer route? Should I be a pharmacist? Hey, you said it, not me.
Yeah, no, not pharmacist, that's for sure. I actually was really interested in electricity.
Okay.
I voluntarily took physics when I was in school, and chemistry and all this stuff, and I was really into the sciences. So I could have defaulted to that. I come from a background of a long line of mathematicians, and influential mathematicians at that, in Egypt, and I just didn't fall into that standard, and I was actually quite bad at math in school, but I really did like science, and I really did like electronics, and so I was actually thinking about going into electronical engineering. Didn't do that. I don't really know why. I think it just seemed too hard, or like the prerequisites seemed too hard in high school or something, and I just didn't do it. I didn't pursue it. But I didn't really think that I was going to go into anything standard anyway.
Yeah.
I remember when I was a kid, I used to think like, what are people going to think when I walk into a professional boardroom in a suit and they introduce Rony? Like, that's my name? Rony? You gave me a nickname as a name. Is that going to be okay? I don't know. Is that going to be weird? And I mean, in 2018, it's not weird at all.
Everybody accepts that.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
Yeah.
But it's a good thing I ended up in, you know, a creative field where it doesn't really matter what my name is.
Right.
And I know that sounds like a pithy kind of thing, but there is some kind of validity to it in some circles, in some industries.
I used to feel the same way about Jesse for some reason, and maybe it was just because the kids are always like, Jesse's a girl's name, where if you look it up, idiots, it's not, but I mean, it is, but like, it was a guy's name first, so
True.
Yeah. It's biblical.
It's biblical. He just got biblical.
Yeah. Open the book.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't think I would have really went into something safe. And by default, I don't like safe. I tend to go for what's uncomfortable, which is not always the best, but my default is to find my comfort zone and run as far away from it as I can, which is, it gets more hectic as you grow a family, right? And it's not just you that you're dealing with, it's a few other lives.
Sure. Was there a reason that you guys moved from Egypt, or you went from Egypt to Kuwait?
So Kuwait's this really small country in
Okay.
the Middle East. So like Saudi Arabia's right here and like Iraq and stuff. And Kuwait's just this like dot
Yeah.
in the middle of it all. Yeah, my dad moved there for opportunity.
Right.
Just better than Egypt.
Gotcha.
For work. And then my mom followed. And then my parents, well, I was born in LA and they did that just so I can be a citizen.
Right.
Take that. And then
Donald,
take that, Don.
Yeah.
And then basically went back to Kuwait. So I was raised in Kuwait, but they just went for opportunity.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And then you lived, I remember you mentioning you lived in San Francisco.
Yeah. So that was in the 90s, early 90s. We went on vacation to San Francisco, and a couple days later, the Gulf War hit.
Oh.
So we couldn't go back to Kuwait where the Gulf War was happening, and we got stuck there for about 9 months. Dad worked a grocery store job, got held up at gunpoint a bunch, would walk through gang violence just because the only job he got was a graveyard shift.
Right.
So, he'd walk through gangs and stuff. And he was telling me that he would walk through like at 4 a.m. to go back home. And eventually during his time working at the grocery store, he had a gang on his side. So like they had his back. So the other gang couldn't mess with him.
Wow.
Yeah. This guy's a boss.
Your dad is OG.
Yeah. Pretty crazy.
That's so good timing then to go on vacation is what you're trying to say?
Yeah. If you ever feel like going to San Francisco.
So did you stay in San Francisco and move up here, or did you go back to Kuwait?
Yeah. So we stayed in San Francisco and then to Santa Monica for a bit. Okay. And then basically after the war kind of died down a little bit, they still weren't letting people into Kuwait, but because I was American, I got some kind of in.
Okay.
And yeah, we went right back.
Okay.
So we were in Kuwait until I was 15, and then I came here.
Wow. And why Canada?
My dad had a dream, like literally had a literal dream.
Oh wow.
And he's like, we need to go to Canada. God said we have to go to Canada.
Hey.
Okay.
When the Lord speaketh.
Can't argue with that. I hated it.
You really?
Oh yeah.
Why?
I didn't like Canada. I felt like it was so behind with everything. Like technology just sucked here. And
still kind
cars
of is.
Or something. Like I just felt like everything was so, not up to date. And I was really into tech.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Growing up in San Francisco and then going to Canada would be.
Yeah, and I mean, like Kuwait was super affluent too, right?
Right.
And it was like a lot of money was invested in everything. So our cell phones were way better. Like our cars were. I'd never heard of a Civic until I came here. You know what I mean? Like it was those standard things that we have in Canada aren't normal there. But I'm really glad I live here now.
Yeah.
I mean, looking back, it's kind of like I was so jealous of my friends because they all lived in villas and they were literally all royalty. And I lived in an apartment, which looking back was like a luxury condo compared to what you can get here. Right.
Yeah.
But being a discontent kid, you're kind of like, why can't I be rich?
Yeah. It's always like that looking back now.
Yeah.
Like you realize how good of a life we've had.
Yeah. Basically.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I didn't want to come here. But now I'm really happy I'm here.
Yeah.
Like it's definitely home now. I can actually feel okay. I feel good saying I'm Canadian.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just got my citizenship a few years ago and I just held off initially because I just didn't care to associate myself or have any kind of liberty really to anywhere. And then I decided to do it, and it was just like a few years now where I'm actually proud to, if I had to wear a Canadian flag, I'm not just going to do it because I want to look like a nice tourist.
Right.
I was going to say sorry and thank you, but I actually feel proud saying I'm from Canada.
Well, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Wait, did I ever tell you what the judge said to me when I got my citizenship?
No.
So I go up to get my certificate or whatever, the thing, and he's like, "Congratulations, you're Canadian now." He's like, where were you born? Where are you from initially? And I'm like, Los Angeles. He looks at me, he's like, well, why the hell are you here?
Wow.
I was like,
that's forward.
Okay. I mean, it's nice.
Yeah.
I guess, but
wow.
love it. So
Interesting.
thanks for welcoming me to your country.
We like everybody. So, not too long ago, so when I met you, you were doing the full-time thing with Fiduci Group, and then they transitioned into a company called Bump Creative, where I think you had probably a similar role at the time. It was like a transitional period for the company as a whole, but you then went freelance for a bit.
Yeah, I actually went freelance before that.
Okay.
Before I knew anything about it.
Oh, wow.
It was not public at all. I happened to go freelance right before that happened. So, I mean, for them, it was probably like a bunch of stuff that was like, whoa.
Yeah, what's going
happening?
on?
Yeah. So, I went freelance to do other things, explore the kind of work that I wanted to be doing that's just a bit different, and grow in certain ways. I felt pretty comfortable at Fiduci Group, and so I wanted to get out of my comfort zone and do something different, and I did, and it was really fun. And now, after a few months, I was approached again to join this new endeavor, this Bump Creative thing, and I said no a couple times because I was just really enjoying the freelancing thing. But the more we talked about it, the sweeter the deal kind of seemed. And so, as hard as it was to do that, because it was a merger and it was a merge of two completely different cultures, it was not the most fun at first. But now that we've gone through a couple of years and we've rebranded and we've reintroduced ourselves to our clients, and our team is better than it's ever been. Now it's kind of a force to be reckoned with, right? And it's actually a good place to work, and it's enjoyable, and it's not just because Todd's our boss and he will indulge us with donuts and booze. I mean, it's it's definitely a perk.
Yeah,
but it is a good place to work because it stretches everybody, and I am and the higher ups, so to speak, are definitely in it to help people develop, and it's kind of like they always have our back no matter what, and that's definitely taught me to be a better leader and to push myself to give myself for others instead of trying to, in one sense, be the hero and do all the work myself, or in another sense, just use them and abuse the power that I have, or just ride them so hard that it's just get the work done and go home if you feel like you've really put in your time.
Right.
Like I don't think that's ever been an influence I've received from from the executive team, and it's definitely not a thing that I want to push to my team. So it's definitely taught me a lot about leadership, and it's taught me a lot about how to deal with people, clients, and the team, and even just with myself. The role that I'm in right now, I mean, I was the lead designer at Fiduci Group, and now being creative director, it was really intimidating at first because I didn't know how to do it, and not that I'm perfectly versed in it now, but I definitely have a confidence that I didn't have back then, where I can walk with my back up and or like my chest out, and I can feel confident in what I'm doing, and not in an egotistical way, I don't think, but in a way where I can ask of my team certain things, and they won't question it in the wrong way. They'll question, what do you mean by this, if that's ever the case, but they don't think that I'm just bossing them around. And at least I hope that's not the case. But I definitely have seen a shift, and it was about 8 months into my time at that company, at Bump, where I hated it. I just hated it, and I hated everything about myself and what I was, kind of becoming, and the company was just so kind of dark at that time. And one day I was driving to work, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go in today not thinking about how this day is going to influence the rest of my career. Because that's what I was doing. I was going in, I was like, what am I doing? Because a lot of the work we were doing was kind of just like, what are we doing? It wasn't good. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to go in. I'm going to do the best I can. I'm going to lead my team. And I'm going to go home. And my concern is not going to be for how do these 8 hours, 9 hours affect the rest of my career. My concern is going to be, how do I make those 8 or 9 hours count and make my team get my team to do the best work that they can do and feel appreciated and like human beings. And that was like the day where everything just turned around 180 degrees.
Wow.
And I found that the more I could pour out of myself and give of myself to others, the better the work would be, the better the attitudes would be, the more they would receive my leadership more effectively, where I could say, this needs to happen by this time. And I can be firm, as gentle or whatever, but I can still be firm and say, this needs to happen and lead them in the way that they need to go. And they'll actually listen, not out of like a sense of obligation or fear or whatever other kind of negative reason, but because they know that I have their best interest in mind.
Right.
So, now being able to promote people and, speak to somebody else's career and say, you know what, you were a designer here and you killed it. And you've shown us, this isn't that. And this is how you've grown in the past year or 2 years. And now I want to promote you to be an art director and take on these roles and these responsibilities and come alongside me and lead and build into people. And for me to be able to speak into that person's life and be a part in giving them that opportunity is a massive thing that I've been given, and I want to be able to give to others too.
That's incredible. It's so interesting seeing a shift in how leadership is these days versus I think what it was probably like back in the olden days, where it was more probably fear driven and stuff like that, where you're almost like you're being like just the way that you show your passion for the job and you kind of share that with your team and it gets them hyped on it, right? And that's what you want. Like anybody that's like not dreading what they're doing and hating what they're doing and hating their boss is going to give you a better product. It's like leadership 101 probably.
Yeah.
You should probably write a book.
Definitely not.
One day maybe.
Yeah, maybe one day.
It sounds like you've got a good handle on what it is that you're doing. And what I really like about that story is you can kind of like, I think for a lot of people probably like I can't pick one day where it was like something changed and I can remember back to that one moment, but you have that day, the time you're driving into work and you remember exactly what the thought was that kind of changed everything for you. And that's super cool because it's like you can think back to that. Yeah. It's like a tangible thing that you can hold on to. And, I'm sure you probably still get down about certain things, but you could probably stop and just think back to that moment and it re-encourages you
100%,
which is awesome.
Yeah, 100%. Even just telling the story, I was like, man, I remember where I was when I was driving when I thought about that.
It's like it is a life-changing thing. Like that's one of those things you'll probably never forget.
Yeah,
and such a positive one too. So that's cool.
Yeah, it changes everything. And I mean, I've since then kind of like that day was an experiment. I went in there intentionally saying I'm going to do this and see what the results are, and ever since I on my good days, I'll treat them as experiments and I'll say, you know what? I have all this stuff to do and I need to be really productive. And so here's how I'm going to do it. Here's how I'm going to tackle this day and let's see if that works. I think that's like a super productive productivity experiment. And then I'll be, so-and-so is really struggling in this thing. We're not getting the work out of them that we need to. I know they have better potential. So I'm going to focus efforts on this person and make sure that these things happen so that, but these are good days. And there are some days where I go in and I'm like, I'm just exhausted or I need to, I can't give myself, I feel like I can't, but that's why I have these, stickies on my computer and then my stickies are never reminders to email so-and-so or like someone's phone number. It's always, like I have one that says die empty, which means like when you die empty, having given everything that you can give, or another one that says wash more feet and wash feet more. Because I was, kind of like the Jesus picture of him washing his disciples' feet, like that servant kind of attitude. And this all these different reminders for me to like look at when I'm looking at my computer and I'm pissed about something, or I'm aggravated with somebody on the team or a client. I can look at these reminders and be like, okay, well, at one point I told myself that this was a good idea and I should probably listen to myself on a good day.
Yeah. Man, I want you to be my boss. I'm just like imagining, because like your attitude towards the whole thing of like being, I don't know, like just those two things that you said are so important. And I just like, it's something that I'm going to apply to my life now. Like, I think that's incredibly helpful to have those short little reminders that are so irrelevant, I guess. And it seems strange to think in like a leadership position to be reminded of that, because a lot of times when you're in the heat of it, you just don't have time to think of those things, right? And you're just kind of like firing off on emotion almost, and habit or whatever it may be. But just to have those little things kind of as like the backbone of your leadership mantra, let's call it. Crazy. That's very inspirational.
Sweet.
And it's interesting because a friend of mine and I have been talking a lot about the law of attraction and just putting out good energy into the universe, and you will see that come back, not for your own gain necessarily, but like, I don't know, Lindsay and I have been talking about it a lot lately, to like just trying to shift our mentality from being less judgmental and negative about certain things. I think we're probably for the most part pretty positive people, but you catch yourself every once in a while getting a little bit of a funk that way.
Yeah.
And so I've been trying to be more conscious about this whole law of attraction thing, about being, even if I'm feeling kind of like bummed out about something, try and shift my mindset into finding the silver lining in this situation. I'm sure there's some things that have no silver linings, but realistically, we all live pretty good lives. So just trying to find that and apply that even into my work, it just sounds very similar to what you're talking about a little bit. You're just like, you may be pissed off about something, but you're going to try and put out a good vibe for the good of your team, for the good of the project, for the good of the work, for the good of yourself, really.
Yeah.
You're probably just going to feel way better.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely changes everything. And I think two things about that is, one, everything that you think of, and I mean the negative thoughts you can have toward a person, or what are your opinions or whatever, that as much as you'll hold it back in, they will be made manifest. And it may be in an outburst, or it may be, if you're lucky, just passive aggressive, and that's your best case scenario, but it will come out, whatever it is. And then two, I definitely believe in the rule of reciprocity, and it's unconscious. Like it's just this thing that you give, somebody else will feel obligated in some way to give. And it's not that they're guilted into it. And it's not that, he was nice to me. Now I gotta be nice to him.
Yeah.
I owe him a favor. You owe your neighbor an onion.
No, she owes me an onion.
Or she owes you an onion. That's right.
I'm gonna follow up with that.
That's right. So you go get your onion.
Yeah.
Right. But hopefully she'll give you an onion and more. Right.
Yeah.
Like, and that's human nature, is that we are wired to be, have this desire to show reciprocity, to give back what's been given to us. And I mean that on a good day, that'll happen. But if you're cognizant of your attitude, of your desires, of like where your mind is at, and where your thinking is at, and you can stop yourself and say, you know what, this is just not helpful. These thoughts I'm thinking are just not helpful. They're not helping me. They're not going to help my team. They're not going to help client, whoever it is. I'm just not going to say it. Even at home. I mean, there's some stuff with my wife that, over the, we've been married for 6 years, and there's definitely going to be stuff where, that she'll do that bugs me, even if it's like a small thing. But then I've made it a habit to ask myself, well, is it helpful to even bring it up? Because maybe bringing it up is just going to exasperate the situation and won't solve anything. So I'm just not going to bring it up because it was likely an accident.
Right.
Or just an oversight.
It's true.
Right. And the only thing it's going to accomplish is make her feel bad about herself. Or worse, we'll fight about it for some reason. So best option is just to keep my mouth shut.
Yeah.
Right. And so I got to internalize that in a healthy way and say, you know what? Rationally, that's not a good decision. I'm just not going to do that. And then the manifestation of that is that I've shown her grace, right? In that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that will be made manifest. That like internally I've decided I'm going to be gracious in this moment and not bring up a fault, because I know I have like a million that she could just bring up right away.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's not because of that, but I know I do. Right. And that kind of humbles you in a little. But in this moment, I'm just going to be like, you know what? I don't need to bring it up. It's nothing. It's water under the bridge. She doesn't need to know about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that outpouring of grace is going to return grace.
Sure.
Even though she doesn't know it.
Well, yeah, you're just going to be happier because of it, right?
Yeah.
And being able to like not hold on to things. Because like, I don't know, I think we're all probably guilty of this. I know I am, that somebody bothers you, you get aggravated, and maybe like you said, you choose not to bring it up.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not conscious about letting it go also, you can hold on to it for a long time. And even without you knowing it, like you said, it manifests, right? So you kind of have to like, in a way, you have to like accept the fact that like you're going to let this go and just do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe this is going to sound weird, but like, I think I'm really good at that to a fault almost.
Expert at,
weirdly enough though, like I think it probably gets me like walked over, like all over sometimes, because I'm just like, oh, you probably didn't mean it.
You probably didn't mean to take that 10 grand right out of my pocket.
Yeah, they're probably really nice people. But yeah. How important is it to have confidence in your line of work, you think? Maybe not necessarily even your line of work. Let's broaden the scope a little bit. Let's say as a freelancer in anything or a creative. How important is it to like, to have a sense of confidence in what you're doing? Is it everything?
I definitely think it's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I've worked around the people I work around, the more I realize that you're always projecting something.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I still struggle with this, but for a long time, I didn't know what my face was doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I had, RBF, and I still do sometimes. And then, you might have to edit the video a little bit.
Ronnie, what does RBF mean?
I don't want to say. Just look up RBF. Okay. You'll see Kanye West's face everywhere. This is a PG podcast.
No.
But I had to be aware of what I was projecting, and I had to be aware of like what my body language said. And the more I put myself into situations where I was around new people, networking events, which are usually awkward, the less I felt awkward, and the more I actually felt comfortable, because for a while I was kind of just putting myself in a different skin that I could be comfortable with. I think about when I was in my band, I was so comfortable. And I could be in front of thousands of people. I don't care. Like, I'm so comfortable doing playing music in front of a lot of people. But, for a while I was like in a networking event in a new place where there are new people and I don't know anyone. It feels uncomfortable. And I remember when I first started freelancing, I was like, how do I talk? How do I start a conversation? Why would I start a conversation? I don't do small talk. I'm a deep person. You tell me what you do, I will ask you why. And then we'll get right into your history and how that, came to be. Because I ask myself those questions, and I know why I'm entrepreneurial. I know why I'm creative and why I do these things. What about you? And so my issue is, hiding the crazy a little bit before it comes to that point. So I found that confidence is when you put it on at first, and then you realize that you have it, or you just kind of grow it. I think we were talking about this earlier, how I always thought I was an introvert, and I realized that I'm actually not. If I'm ever an introvert, it's actually because I'm an ambivert. I'm a bit of both, and there's some times where I just need to not be around people. I need to do my work or just chill out for whatever. But I could chill out for like 5 minutes and be like, where are the people? I was hanging out by myself last night just to kind of gather my thoughts a little bit. And I'm like, who can I call? And I realized that I'm actually more of an extrovert than I am an introvert. And it's not that introverts don't have confidence. but it's like, it's understanding who you are and where your confidence lies, because maybe you are an introvert and you can be confident in whatever way you can be. I mean, I don't know what that is, but for me, it was, I'm actually okay being around groups of random people, and sure, I'll get into a conversation. It might be tough at first because I'm like,
trying to insert yourself into something that's already kind of like established. Yeah.
Like that group.
It's great. That awkward, like weird laugh thing. You have no idea what they're said, but you just want to act like you're kind of in.
Yeah.
You're in the cool club.
I'm in this inner. No. Okay.
No, I'll just stand over here by myself.
Yeah. But you find your ways to manipulate the circumstance where you don't feel so awkward, and you can insert yourself into a conversation, and it's okay, because it's just another person whose opinion doesn't really matter that much. And if it does, then, you'll find a way to bring it back around in the conversation.
Mm-hmm. You ever find that people can see through your motives when you're like maybe trying to talk to them? For example, like if you see somebody that you'd really like to work with or something like that, or like this is like classic for me. It's just the position I'm in life right now as a director, going to a bunch of advertising parties and like essentially going up and talking to these copywriters, these art directors, these creative directors. And I'm always worried that they can see through me, and they can see like they kind of just assume that my motive is to like try and befriend them to get work out of them, which, maybe long game is a little bit, but at the same time, I always try to say this when I do meet up, because I've gone out for drinks with a bunch of these different people now, and I always try and establish somewhere in the conversation that like, listen, completely transparent. Maybe that is like down the road, would love to work together. I love your work. I would love to work with you. But that being said, I also genuinely would like to be your friend, because we're kind of into the same stuff, right? And so that's something that I kind of have struggled with like for the last 3 years. Like it has, breaking in this industry a little bit, my full-time job has been going to these events, meeting these people, and trying to make some sort of an impact so that they'll visit my website and be like, maybe I like his work, kind of thing. And it's been difficult to say the least, for those reasons, especially because I always feel like it's just the most unauthentic type of thing, and they get it every single day, right? Like I'd rather just be like homies with somebody. Like, man, I'm not looking for your money. I would love to talk a shop with you for a couple hours because we're into the same stuff.
I think you got to walk the line, because I appreciate the transparency part. And I think that's where you need to sit, is being transparent with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that comes off in the first sentence of your dialogue or not is another question. But there's a line in The Office where I can't remember who, but I think probably Dwight or something. I can't remember. But he says, he's telling Michael, it's business, it's not personal. And then he yells back, he's like, business is the most personal thing ever. Right. And he sounds like Michael Scott.
Mm-hmm.
He just sounds like he's being an idiot. But I mean, if you watch The Office a few times, like I have, you'll realize that he's actually quite savvy in that. And he's just not so socially aware all the time.
Right.
But there's a lot of truth to that. And I've learned that through, like, again, working with the people I do with Todd and stuff. And like, you see that business is so personal, and you're just talking to another human being who's also trying to make a buck.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're on that as your neutral ground, like that's what you have in common, that you both are in business somehow, that you're both trying to make a living. There's your common ground.
Yeah.
If not also that you're both creative, if not also that you do these kinds of things on the side, if not whatever. So you actually have layers of commonality. So it's the kind of breaking through that and making sure that that kind of stuff is foundational to your conversation and to whatever relationship you have, whether it's for that 20-minute conversation or for your 20-year friendship you end up having with that person who you've idolized for so long. It always has to start with a personal touch. It always has to start with like, I'm just a human like you are a human, and like just because you've done so much with your career doesn't mean that I need to cower in fear here.
No, exactly.
Right. And so I think that's part of it, is that we fear people too much to actually engage on a real level, so that we think, oh man, because I'm engaging on this kind of real level, I feel like I'm a fraud, because really, I mean, I'd like to work with them, but I mean, they seem cool. And so you're having this inner dialogue that is non-existent.
Yeah.
It's not a thing. If you look at yourself from the outside, it's just like a guy standing there.
Yeah.
It's not actually happening.
And it's weird how that can like completely seize somebody up too, right? Like that inner dialogue that you just mentioned, like I'm classic for that.
Yeah.
And just, I want to slip one thing in there and give credit to my dad quickly, because like everything you just described, I had this conversation with him the other day before I went into a pitch, and I was like, man, like this is intense. Like this is a big one. And he just said, just remember, they're the same as you. They put their pants on the same as you, one leg at a time, which is like just simplifying everything you just said. But it's so true on like a basic level.
Yeah.
We're all the same.
Yeah.
We're all after the same thing, just trying to get by in this thing called life by doing something creative. So,
I mean, I remember having interviews where I was interviewing people, and there was one interview that I did where, I mean, the guy was so scared, and he was a bigger guy.
Yeah.
He's just like taller, and like I thought like, oh man, he's got presence, but he didn't have presence. He didn't have any kind of bravado. He was large, but then he sat down and he tried to do this interview, and I found it hard to conduct because he at points broke down and started to cry.
Wow.
And I'd never been like, internally I feel like sometimes we would have wanted to do that, like we would be like in paralyzing situations where, how am I supposed to talk to this person?
Yeah.
And that's what happened here. And I was like, man, that really helped me.
Yeah.
To be honest, because I realized that, okay, well, next time I'm in an interview, I mean, I hope I don't, no offense, like bomb like that, but no, but with all grace, though, I mean, yeah, like we kind of had a moment, and it was like, it's okay, and I tried to help him through it. And again, like I feel like I wanted to hug the guy because it was kind of hard, but I know what that feels like. But it helped me realize that, for my next encounter with somebody who maybe has an opinion that matters, or, my future or career or whatever is in this person's, control for about 5 minutes, I can just be okay with that and just say, you know what, I know what it's like to be on both sides of this thing. And you're just a person like I am. And so there's nothing here. I'm actually good at what I do. And I'm like, and it's not from a place of like, you'd be lucky to have me.
Yeah.
But it is a confidence piece where I can say, you know what? No, I have value to bring here. If you don't want me, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I definitely have value that I can add here. So let's hang out. Let's talk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Everybody's so different that way too, eh? It's crazy. The more when you're in that leadership position and you're hanging out with people that are in a similar position, or it's literally your job to notice these things, you really do get a good sense of like how different we are as humans. Like we're all the same theoretically. Like you said before, we're all just trying to do the same thing, but at the same time, like our emotions, anxiety levels, like all of these different things at play, it's intense. And I think that like a good part of being a good leader is kind of like recognizing that and steering the ship accordingly, so to speak.
Well, if you're aware, and now I am, where I can look at my anxiety levels, like I can almost see them, like I can feel myself. So I breathe. I just like take a breath. Like I actually do take a deep breath, and I'm not like telling myself anything. I'm just okay. It's cool. It's fine. Find a solution to the problem. Whatever's making you anxious. Usually the best way to take care of this work or of the stress, or it's the best way to get rid of the anxiety is to just do the work that needs to happen. Or if you have no control over it, which anxiety stems from a lack of control most of the time, just recognize that you have no control. Put on some music that you really like and accept the fact that you have no control.
Yeah. Slow jams.
Slow jams.
Gotta be. Seriously though, like I cannot, if I'm working, if I'm writing or anything, it has to be like classical music or smooth jazz. Like anything with words, anything that's like upbeat, I'm playing air guitar, like rocking right out. So
little Kenny G coming at you.
Seriously, yeah. But something that I do, because I'm the same, like I'm very good at identifying when I'm getting anxious, and I remember I was writing a treatment for something, and it was just like, it was overwhelming. My ideas were coming at me, and I was like, I can't control all of this right now. There's a deadline. You have to think about going in and pitching it. You have to think about like writing it in a way that's going to like, get your message across, but like get you the job. And I just had to take a step back, and like I remember writing at the top of my notebook, like, take a breath, slow it down. You can do this. And I wrote it in big, bold letters. And I do that I do that almost every project now. I write that at the top of my page, just so it's just there to remind me, right? Like it's gonna get crazy. There's no way around that.
Yeah.
You have to remember to take a minute. You can handle this. We are capable of some crazy shit. Mm-hmm. So you just got to find your way.
Yeah.
To slow your brain down.
It's helpful to realize that what we do isn't that hard.
No.
And a lot of it just has to do with being able to control being in our heads, because we have to, especially if we're writing something and we're being creative and we have to visualize a thing that is not a thing.
Yeah. And you're trying to like sell somebody on making that a thing.
Yeah. And so you're this side of your brain's like, are you going to be able to sell it? You got to sell it, man. You got to really sell it. And then the other side of your brain's like, just let me muse for a minute. Let me just figure this out. Summon the creative spirits, whatever you do.
Yeah.
That's my process.
Yeah. What kind of drugs are you on?
You don't want to know. But it comes down to like being able to sit back and say, okay, I'm really anxious about this thing. What are my anxieties? Is it that I'm not going to hit the deadline? I'll hit the deadline. I've done this before. It's, it's intense, but I can do it. Is it that they're not going to like it? Well, you can't bother yourself with that, because you just got to do good work, and then
you just kind of can't control that sometimes.
You can't control it, right? Yeah. Like they may not like it, and that could be the determining factor, which is unprofessional, but that could be it. Mm-hmm. So are you just going to half-ass it? No. And a lot of the problem is that we will like work our ways into this spiral of inability, of like not just doing anything, of being paralyzed. Analysis paralysis. We were talking about this earlier, where you look at all the things that need to be done or whatever it is, and you don't know what to do. You don't know where to start. Mm-hmm. And that was my life for so long. And it made me afraid to want to do big work, to do anything, that would require hard work, that would require effort, because I know that my brain's just going to go ham. So it's either I do subpar work for the rest of my life, or I control my brain and know how to address my anxieties when they come up, which is, it's not easy. It's not a cakewalk. Mm-hmm. It's still hard on the daily. Yeah. I have good days and bad, but at least now I have a game plan. Mm-hmm.
No, it definitely sounds like you kind of have a good way of handling these things and working through them, which is awesome. And I think it's important to hear that we're like, everybody experiences these things. It sounds weird to say, but like nothing, it doesn't pump me up, but like I kind of love seeing people that are at the top, people that I idolize, almost like come down to earth a little bit and say like, no, man, there's like 10 years there where like I just got my ass kicked and nothing was going right and there was no success, and they just kept doing it. Mm. And like that to me is kind of like, okay, please God, let that be the period of life that I'm in right now. Please help me get out of this hole.
Yeah. But I mean, some people just aren't patient enough to do it.
No, it's true.
So they jump from one shiny thing to the next.
Exactly. And you just gotta like, if you love something, no matter how hard it hurts or how much it hurts sometimes, you just gotta keep plugging away and hold on. And I don't know, I have felt that like it kind of sucks because you kind of want to come off as this person that's like successful and has it all together. But at the same time, like the times that I feel most at peace with where I am in life is when I'm talking to other people about it. Like this, for example, this podcast right now with talking with you has like made me feel really, really good about where I'm at and the stuff I think about and, applying some of the things that you've said into my own life. And then earlier today I had a conversation with somebody else that was very similar. And like yesterday was a tough day because I lost a pitch, but like then today it kind of like turned around and is like, you know what, you're right. There is a silver lining to this. I feel okay with this. That was a good opportunity. It didn't go my way, but still a good opportunity. I find that like you don't always have to put on that like big boy, like I'm all of this in a bag of potato chips, right? You can just like, it's okay to be like, man, today sucked.
Yeah.
Because odds are guaranteed the person you're talking to knows exactly what you're talking about in one form or another.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, putting on a front is only going to take you so far, right? Before people are like, yeah,
that's full of shit. That's kind of that's why like my big beef with like social media right now is because I think that it's too easy, and we're all guilty of this. I'm guilty of this. It's too easy to put on that front and be like, look at me, look where I am, look what I'm doing. Even though like I just posted a picture I took last year from somewhere that's really not that cool because I slapped a Lightroom filter on it and like, but yeah.
Is it one of the creative filters?
Yeah, it's one of the, no, I bought this filter actually. I paid good money.
Wow.
Lie, I have my own filters. No, but like that's my point, right? Like it's just so easy to be fake, and I feel like people are always like, I understand like it's a business for some people, and it's important, but I also think it's important to like unplug yourself from that a little bit and have a real conversation and not, I don't know, because people kind of see through that.
Yeah,
at least I do. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, social media is its own beast too. I mean, that's a whole other conversation we could really get into.
I think that would just go on forever.
Yeah. I mean, but I'll say this. I mean, I remember, and again, I guess I'm aware, but I remember using MSN when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I remember that was a safe place for me to speak because I had a second to gather my thoughts. And I'm a writer. Like I write my thoughts out. I write, whatever I need to verbalize. If I'm doing a pitch, I'll write it. I'll toss it away after, but I'll just write it just to know that I know what I'm talking about. And so MSN was a great venue for me because I could hear the message. Okay, think about it. And then they know what I want to say. But then look at me in real life back then, and I was like, I wasn't scared or intimidated, visually, but I wasn't as funny. I wasn't as, smart or whatever. And so that was my safe place.
Man, imagine the amount of girls that I asked out over MSN. Like,
you actually?
Well, yeah, dude. But like when you're like that young, like if you think about it, first of all, MSN's the reason I can type, which is kind of hilarious. But then like it is like you said, you can actually like look at your like real life and see the difference.
Yeah.
It's way easier to do things. That's why emails are like, so I would much rather just like, even now, like for example, if I'm like have to contact somebody to rent something, I would rather email them than call them on the phone.
Yeah.
Which is dumb.
Yeah. But I mean, on the flip side, I think if I'm going to make a positive out of it, doing that helped me realize that I am a good communicator in writing.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. And that helps my creative process. And so I can take those things that are just as well can go super south, and I can make it a positive thing and take the good out of what can be made a bad. Sure. Because this stuff's just neutral.
Yeah.
It's just sitting there. It's like, okay, are you going to use it for the right reasons, or are you going to use it as like your vanity check to say,
right,
you know what? I'm amazing. Did you see what I had for breakfast?
Yeah.
Right. Like, and that's how it is for some people. And the trend of influencers and where advertising is going, and that like that's a whole new game that is crazy. I mean, again, is its own conversation. But
is there anything specific that you look for in the people that you want to work with?
Yes. I've thought a lot about it, actually.
Excellent.
Before this podcast. One thing that I've always pushed, and just because I've seen it be so valuable in my own life, is resourcefulness. And what I mean by that is just the ability to make a thing happen that may be seemingly impossible, or you don't know how to do it, or whatever it is. I mean, we live in the age of Google and YouTube, but I was doing this before the age of Google and YouTube. And so right now we have a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of resource to be able to figure a thing out and make yourself useful in ways that you didn't think you were going to be useful to the company that's just going to grow you. Why not? Right. I mean, I used to say when I was younger, I used to say, you know what, I don't know that I can't be the next Babe Ruth. I don't know because I haven't tried. And that was kind of the basis I did a lot of things off of. So my first internship out of college, my boss asked if I could animate a video and animate, like, this butterfly going through the city and doing this thing. And he's like, could you do that? I'm like, yeah. I had never done it. Yeah. The most I'd done was some kinetic type in After Effects at that point. And this was my first actual like animation kind of thing. And I mean, I'm not an animator. I just can do it. So I remember being in the shower the next morning, like thinking about how to do it, just like washing myself. Like, oh, how am I gonna make that wing move? Okay, I'll just, I'll put a keyframe here and do this. So I'm like doing all the logistics in my head the morning of, and then I get there and I actually do the thing, and it worked.
Wow.
And so that just gave me ammo to be like, I will not say no if I don't know that I can do it, because I don't know that I can't do it.
Right.
So if there's potential I can do it.
Has it ever burned you?
Yeah, but I fixed it.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's key, right? Like that, and that's not a natural thing. It's a learned thing. Like if you're going to try to do something and it doesn't work out, then make your best effort at making that good.
Right.
Right. Like, I mean, I remember my first photo shoot, like a pretty large photo shoot that I art directed. It was a gong show the night before, because the people who were hosting the space didn't know what the details were. The models didn't know what the details were. Like, none of the talent really understood a lot of it, and I didn't realize that. No one had said anything. I thought I was really organized, and I had spreadsheets and all that stuff, and call sheets and stuff, and I thought everything was set. Even the photographer was confused. And so the night before, I had to figure everything out after I got reamed out, and it felt like crap, but I had to either sit in my crap or fix it.
Mm-hmm.
So I fixed it, and it turned out to be like a really pivotal kind of experience for my career. And I found that I could do things that I didn't ever have the confidence to do before, and I learned to direct on a shoot that was at a bigger scale than I had ever done.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me screwing that up almost to actually make me understand what needs to actually happen for this to go well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd just seen people do it so easily. I mean, I'd watched Todd having done these kinds of things all the time, and him being, a mentor to me, and he just made it look so simple and effortless. And like, there wasn't really a lot of work put behind it, but he worked a lot behind it. It's just, I'd never really seen what that work was.
Mm-hmm.
And it took that experience and us kind of, going through that in a sense together. And I had to learn from that to be like, I can do this next time now.
Mm-hmm.
I know what not to do.
You definitely learn more from those bad situations.
Yeah.
Just because you have to. If everything goes super smoothly.
So to answer your question, I did get burned.
Yeah.
But it's like, are you going to be a burn victim, or are you going to actually just get up and bandage yourself up and make something happen?
Exactly. Makes it worth it too.
Yeah.
Because if you pull it off, that feeling of just being like, a few deep breaths, you can breathe again. You realize how dehydrated you are because you haven't had time to drink water.
Seriously.
Been there, done that.
Yeah.
So
It's true.
So if you let's wrap it up a little bit. If you had, let's put it this way: if you could say one thing to the younger Rony coming up, what would you say? What would be your piece of advice? And like you can even broaden it a little bit to like people that maybe want to aspire to be you, kind of thing. Like what would be your piece of advice?
Don't aspire to be me.
Okay. And we're done.
And
Cut.
scene. I want to watch how I say this because it's not what it sounds like. So I would say that the piece of advice is not point blank, trust your gut. And it's not what it sounds like. So trusting your gut as far as, the general advice goes is, you know what, if it feels good, then do it. I definitely don't agree with that. It's a lot of stuff that feels great and you should not do. But following your gut actually, I think, means look back at the experiences that you've had, look back at your failures and your successes, and look back at how you can see clearly you are wired a certain way, or you are gifted in a certain thing, or you're skilled in whatever, and take those pieces and watch how when you've acted on those things, when you've pursued certain things, they have worked, and when they haven't worked. And let that be the data that informs your gut, because your gut is gonna actually follow that data naturally. I think my gut at least has been now like trained in a way to hold on to that kind of information and say, you know what? I used to make mixtapes when I was a kid and sell them. And that doesn't make me an entrepreneur, but that definitely explains a lot of why I'm not afraid to like just do something completely different and figure it out. Right. And that is a part of my gut where now I'm like, that's just, it's a neutral ground for me. It's a default. I can do something because of this. I have confidence that I will be able to perform this task because I know this about myself. And that's a thought that happens in a millisecond, and that's my gut. So when I say follow my gut, follow your gut, it's follow the things that you've seen worked for you, but you don't have to think about it, right? The hard thing is that people like me, I'm like a textbook overthinker who's recovering, and I have to get out of my head sometimes and say, you know what, this decision doesn't need to be made over the span of a year and a half. It needs to be made now. What will it be? And those are the kinds of questions that a lot of us struggle with, especially as creative people. And I still struggle with it in some ways to say like, okay, well, I have my gut feeling, but I have, a family to provide for and this team and whoever is looking up to me for something. But that doesn't negate the gut sometimes. And there's this balance of, wisdom and intuition. And I feel like that gets refined as you go along. And I feel like I'm not there yet, but I feel like it's definitely more refined than what it was before, in that I don't fear as much as I used to make a decision based on my gut.
If you want to see more from Rony and the work that he does, you can check him out online or on his Instagram. I'll put the links in the show notes. If you're a fan of coffee, be sure to check out his coffee company, Sly Sons Coffee Roasters. I hope that you enjoyed this show. For more of my content and more episodes of this podcast, you can visit my website at jessedhunt.com or my YouTube channel. We'll see you next time.